Please be seated. This is a long reading, and instead of reading it and then preaching, I'm going to read part and then preach a little bit. So, the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
As Jesus walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work." As we hear just those first couple of verses, it kind of sounds like God made this man blind intentionally. So he had to suffer all of these years from birth until Jesus would come along and heal him. The problem is that there is a major translation error here. And so Jesus' response to the question of the disciples is this instead. Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. In order that God's works might be revealed in him, we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day." So I don't know if you noticed as I read that, the section of that's read, "He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed." There's nowhere in the original text that it says he was born blind so that. That's not there. So I'm not sure why we have it in our translation, but there you go. So in reality, Jesus is not answering the question. He is changing the conversation. It's not about whose sin it is. It is really about the glory of God being shown in whatever circumstances. The story continues. "As long as I am in the world," Jesus says, "I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back, able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it is someone like him." He kept saying, "I am the man." But they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" One thing he answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' Then I went and washed and received my sight." They said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I do not know." Now, the important thing at this point is to see that the identity of the man, and in fact, the identity of Jesus as the man is telling the story, is changing as it goes along. So, first of all, the blind man sees Jesus as just some guy. He doesn't know him from anybody. But then he becomes the man named Jesus. And the man, then he is the man born blind, the man blind from birth. And he's also described as what the word in Greek is actually continually begging. He's always been begging. This is who he is, as described by the people around him. So there's a shift in identity that's going on in the man's identity and how he is understanding who Jesus is. The story continues. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Kind of like Prince, you know, the artist who formerly known as Prince. Sorry. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, He put mud on my eyes. Then I washed, and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath. But others said, How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs? And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened. He said, He is a prophet. So this man, his identity again is shifting. He's now the man who was formerly blind. He has left the continual begging behind. He has left the fact that he was blind since birth behind. He is now the man who was formerly blind. But more important than that, in his own words, he is becoming a witness to who Jesus is. And in his understanding of who Jesus is, the man declares Jesus a prophet. So he's gone from just a guy to a man named Jesus to now he is a prophet. The story continues. The leaders of the synagogue did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he see? His parents answered, We know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that now he sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. He asked, He is of age. He will speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the leaders of the synagogue, for they had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore, his parents said, He is of age. Ask him. His poor parents, on the one hand, it's like, what kind of parents are you really? But they are afraid because they know what will happen to them if they get involved in this. And it doesn't matter if they're right or they're wrong. They are just afraid. And so they just turn it all back over to their son. Ask him. He's of age. The story continues. So for the second time, they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. He answered, I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. They said to him, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear again? Do you want to become his disciples? Then they reviled him, saying, You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. The man answered, Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered him, You were born entirely in sin, and are you trying to teach us? And they drove him out. Again, changing of identity. This man went from just answering their questions, just stating the facts, to now he is identified as a disciple. And because he is a disciple, he is cast out of the synagogue. And in his witness, as a disciple that he has become, he declares that Jesus is from God. And so again, the identity of Jesus is being transformed in the mind and the heart of this man. The story continues. Jesus heard that they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "And who is he, sir? Tell me, so that I may believe in him." Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking to you is he." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would not have sinned. But now that you say we see, your sin remains." Identity's changing again. Jesus is the Son of Man. And the man formerly blind, this man who is a disciple, this man who understands that Jesus is from God, declares, "Lord, I believe." The man becomes a believer, and Jesus becomes God. Metaphorically, of course. Jesus was always God. Blindness is physical and metaphorical. And, you know, when we are blind to our own issues, to the issues around us, we can't be convinced that we're blind, just like those Pharisees. And Jesus isn't condemning them because of something actively that they've done. In fact, they are condemning themselves because they cannot see. And when we cannot see, we condemn ourselves. In our own blindness, we begin the blame game, like everybody in the story. Who's to blame for what has happened to this man? Who's to blame for him being born blind? Who's to blame for him now being able to see? Who's to blame for his witness to the people around him? We can get caught up in that kind of thing as we are filled with fear, with an inability to see. We're in this crisis right now, and I have been hearing all along, you know, who is to blame? Well, it's the Chinese, right? Well, it's the foreigners who came over into our country, because our country is the only one that's important, despite the fact that this is a pandemic. It is the entire world. But we're looking for places to blame, for people to blame, and not understanding that this is just how viruses work. They are trying to survive, these little viruses, and they're doing a grand job right now. And unfortunately, we help frequently. There have been blaming about folks who are overreacting to what's going on, and then folks who are underreacting to what's going on. But it's still a blame game. And then I heard yesterday about the great toilet paper heist. where an entire truckload of toilet paper, for heaven's sakes, this is not a gastrointestinal illness, but anyway, an entire truckload of toilet paper and paper towels was hijacked. Whatever. People are misbehaving, and we all just need to kind of take a step back, not only from each other for social distancing, but also within our own minds and our own hearts. As a church, we are called to have a different approach to what is going on in the world. We, as a church, have dealt with hardships before throughout the history of the world. We've done this. We can do it again. Our job has not changed, no matter what's going on, no matter how we have to worship together, no matter how we have to support one another. Our job has not changed. It is to love God, to love our neighbor, and to love ourselves. And so, how do we do that? Self-quarantining is the way to love yourself and love your neighbor. It's a way that we can slow down this virus, and it's important. But there's more to it than that for the church. So last night was the night for our free community dinner. And, oh, I may cry. And we still had it, but it was in a very different way. We set up a drive-through through the parking lot. The meals were in boxes, and people came through, people we see regularly, people we see infrequently, and people who were brand new. Entire families coming, needing a meal. That's the church. Adapting to very strange times, but continuing to serve the neighbor. And we will continue to do that as long as it is needed. And we will adapt as we go. There's live streaming worship. It's important for us to feel like we can be together, even if we can't physically be together, because we are the church and we worship together. That's part of what we do. The council has divided up the names in our congregation and have been making phone calls and checking in on you. And hopefully you've received a call. If you haven't already, you will be receiving one soon. But it's not just our own members that we need to worry about, but we need to check in on the needs of our neighbors. So if you have neighbors that you haven't seen outside of their house for a while, give them a call and make sure that they're okay. That's part of what we need to do. And in the midst of all of this, we need to understand that everything that we are going through is causing psychological turmoil for everyone. Last night, one of the folks who came through the community dinner said, "This is terrible. I don't have anyone to talk to." So I took down his phone number, and he will receive regular calls because that's important for him. We need to know that God did not cause this. But now that it's here, it is our opportunity to show how great our God is, to show God's glory. Last week, I said, be kind, wash your hands, stay home if you're sick. Now there's more. Be kind, wash your hands, stay home if you're sick. Check on your neighbors. Pray for everyone. Be Christ's hands and feet even when you can't touch anyone with them. And share the good news. we are not alone. We have the church around us, and we have God who will never abandon us. Amen.